Imagine you are standing on a frozen mountain pass. Your boots are soaked with blood that isn't yours. The air smells like iron and burning flesh. Below you, the valley is carpeted with bodies, tens of thousands of them, men who crossed an empire's border believing they were invincible. And now here's the impossible question. How does one man, born a hostage, trained by the greatest war machine on earth, turn around and butcher the very empire that raised him, so badly that even today, historians argue over how many tens of thousands died? You think betrayal is simple? You think rebellion is loud? No. This story is quiet at first. It begins with a child being stolen, and ends with an empire bleeding out in the mountains. And once you hear it, you will never forget the name Skanderbeg. Stay with me, because in the next hour you are going to witness 5 moments so savage, so psychologically devastating, that hardened Ottoman chroniclers tried to erase them from history. You'll see how a boy ripped from his family became the empire's deadliest weapon, and why that weapon eventually turned inward. You'll watch a rebel army so small it should not have existed, ambush and annihilate forces 10 times its size. You'll hear about a siege where defenders drank from puddles mixed with blood, and still refused to surrender. You'll meet an Ottoman commander who begged for mercy, and got none. And finally, you'll discover the lie behind the number 100,000, and why the truth might be even more terrifying. But before any of that, before the battles, before the betrayals, before the mountains ran red, you need to understand how utterly hopeless this situation was. Because if you were alive in Albania in the early 1400s, you would have already accepted your fate. You are born into a land that does not forgive weakness. Albania is not soft countryside. It is rock and bone and steep cliffs that tear at your lungs. Villages cling to mountains like frightened children gripping their mother's leg. And looming over all of it is the Ottoman Empire. By the early 15th century, the Ottomans are not just winning wars. They are absorbing the world. Constantinople is trembling. The Balkans are folding one by one. Serbia, Bulgaria, Greece. Everywhere the Ottoman banners rise, resistance dies screaming. Their system is ruthless and brilliant. They don't just conquer land. They harvest people. Christian boys are taken as children, stripped of their names, their language, their religion, and reforged into janissaries, the most disciplined infantry Europe has ever seen. These boys do not remember home. They remember only obedience. And in 1405, in a small Albanian noble household, one of those boys is born. His name is Jurguj Kastrioti, and his fate is already sealed. Jurguj's father, Gjon Kastrioti, is a regional lord, powerful enough to matter, weak enough to be crushed. He plays the dangerous game all Balkan rulers play, half submission, half resistance. Tribute is paid. Hostages are demanded. And one day, Ottoman riders arrive. They don't shout. They don't threaten. They simply state terms. Send your sons, or lose everything. Jurguj is barely a child when he is handed over. He does not understand politics. He only understands that his mother is screaming, and his father will not meet his eyes. This is the first psychological wound. Because Jurguj does not leave as a warrior. He leaves as property. The Ottoman court does not beat him. That's the mistake people make when they imagine this system. They educate him. They feed him better than most peasants will ever eat. They train him harder than most nobles ever dare. He is taught Turkish, Arabic, Persian. He studies theology, mathematics, statecraft, and above all, he learns war. Not the messy, feudal brawls of Europe. Real war. Formation. Timing. Logistics. Morale. He learns how fear spreads through an army like disease. And Jurguj is good. No, he is exceptional. By his teens, he is already killing men in training bouts. By his early 20s, he is commanding troops. The Ottomans rename him. They call him Skanderbeg, Lord Alexander. Skanderbeg. A comparison to Alexander the Great is not given lightly in this culture. It means one thing. They believe he belongs to them. Here is the tragedy that defines the man. For over 20 years, Skanderbeg serves faithfully. He leads Ottoman armies against Christians, against people who share his blood, his language, his mountains. And he does it well. So well that sultans trust him. So well that enemies fear him. And somewhere deep inside, something is rotting. Because every victory cuts deeper than the last. Imagine knowing exactly how this machine works. And knowing that one day it will grind your homeland into dust. Imagine being praised for it. Let me tell you about Hamza. Hamza is Skanderbeg's nephew, also taken by the Ottomans. Raised the same way. Trained the same way. But Hamza adapts. He believes. He becomes fully Ottoman. Where Skanderbeg remembers his father's silence. Hamza remembers power. And this difference will later tear families apart. But not yet. For now, Skanderbeg rises. By the 1430s, he is one of the empire's most trusted commanders. And that's when history snaps. In 1443, the Ottomans march north to crush a Hungarian-led crusader force. It should be routine. Instead, it's a disaster. At the Battle of Nis, the Ottoman army collapses under surprise attack. Smoke. Screams. Horses crashing into men. This is not a clean defeat. It is chaos. And in that chaos, Skanderbeg makes a decision that will kill tens of thousands. He deserts. Not alone. He takes 300 Albanian cavalry with him, men who still remember home. They ride hard. No banners. No drums. Just a knife-edge sprint toward the mountains. And here is the moment everything changes. Skanderbeg forges a letter. An Ottoman seal. An order from the Sultan. The governor of Cluj, Albania's most important fortress, reads it. And opens the gates. By nightfall, Skanderbeg stands inside his homeland again. The Ottoman garrison is slaughtered. Not in battle. In their sleep. Blood runs down stairwells. Men wake up choking on it. This is not rebellion anymore. This is vengeance. The double-headed eagle of Albania is raised over Cluj. And with it, a declaration. Skanderbeg renounces Islam, publicly returns to Christianity, and calls the Albanian lords to arms. Here's the thing. Almost no one answers. Because rebellion against the Ottomans is suicide. Everyone knows this. But Skanderbeg knows something they don't. He knows how the empire bleeds. Within months, the Ottomans respond. An army marches into Albania. Tens of thousands. They expect a clean execution. What they get instead is hell. Picture narrow mountain roads. Forests so thick sunlight barely reaches the ground. Ottoman columns stretched thin, supply wagons vulnerable, soldiers sweating inside armor meant for open plains. Then the horns blow. Rocks crash down. Arrows fall like rain. Men scream as horses rear and break legs. Skanderbeg does not fight like a feudal lord. He fights like an Ottoman commander turned inside out. Ambush. Withdraw. Repeat. The invaders never see a battlefield. They only see death. By the time the survivors stagger back, entire units are gone. The legend begins here. And the empire takes notice. You would think this is where the story ends. Small rebellion. Crushed eventually. But this is where it gets worse. Because Skanderbeg is about to do something no one believes is possible. He is going to survive. And survival is what turns defiance into slaughter. But before we reach that nightmare, before we reach the siege where bodies are stacked so high men walk across them, you need to understand the cost. Because Skanderbeg's victories are not clean. They are desperate. And they leave scars. In the next part, you will hear what happened to the villages that hesitated, to the commanders who failed, and to Skanderbeg himself, when the past finally catches up to him. Because you think fighting an empire is brutal? Wait until you see what it does to the man who dares try. You think Skanderbeg has won. You think the mountains have saved him. You think the Ottomans will hesitate now. They won't. Because empires don't forgive humiliation. They remember it. And they answer it with annihilation. Imagine being an Ottoman soldier in 1444. You've marched from Edirne with banners snapping in the wind. You've crossed rivers choked with supply boats. You've been told this campaign will be quick, a provincial revolt led by a traitor who will be dragged back in chains. Then you enter Albania. And the land itself turns against you. Roads vanish. Bridges collapse. Villages are empty, but still warm. And every night, someone disappears. A sentry goes missing. A horse is found with its throat cut. A supply wagon burns silently in the dark. Men stop sleeping. They jump at shadows. Veterans who fought Hungarians and Serbs begin whispering a name like a curse. Skanderbeg. But let's slow down. Because this is where the story becomes deeply personal. This is where you see what kind of man Skanderbeg really is. And what the empire did to him first. For 25 years, Skanderbeg lived as an Ottoman. That means he did not just fight for them. He learned how they think. He watched men fail and vanish. He saw commanders executed for hesitation. He saw villages erased for resistance. And worst of all, he saw what happens to rebels who almost succeed. They are made examples of. Slow ones. There is a moment historians rarely linger on. A winter night, years before the rebellion. Skanderbeg is still serving the Sultan. A fellow commander, another Balkan convert, is accused of disloyalty. No proof. Just suspicion. The man is invited to dinner. Wine is poured. Jokes are shared. And when the plates are cleared, guards step in. The commander is dragged outside. Skanderbeg hears screaming that lasts far too long to be a simple execution. In the morning, there is blood frozen into the stones. No body. Just absence. This is how the Ottomans rule. Not with rage. With fear. And now Skanderbeg has chosen to provoke that fear. Openly. He knows exactly what punishment looks like. Which means something else must be driving him. Not ambition. Not glory. Something older. Something raw. Let me tell you about Voisava. Skanderbeg's mother. We don't know much about her words. But we know her grief. When her sons were taken, she did not protest. She knew it would change nothing. She simply watched. Years later, when Skanderbeg finally returns, she is old. Her hair is thin. Her hands shake when she touches his face. And she says something chroniclers preserve because it burns. You came back wearing their soul. That sentence never leaves him. This is the psychological core of Skanderbeg. He is not fighting just to be free. He is fighting to erase something inside himself. And that kind of war has no mercy. The Ottomans send Ali Pasha first. A seasoned commander. 25,000 men. He expects pitched battle. Instead, he finds nothing. Skanderbeg refuses to meet him. For weeks. The army starves. Disease spreads. When Ali Pasha finally tries to force a march through a narrow valley, that's when it happens. You are marching between cliffs. Trees press close. Your shield arm is numb from holding formation too long. Then the world explodes. Boulders tumble down, crushing men flat. Horses scream, a sound you never forget once you hear it. Arrows fall from above. You can't charge uphill. You can't retreat, the column is too tight. Men panic. And panic kills faster than blades. Skanderbeg attacks in waves. Strike. Withdraw. Strike again. By nightfall, thousands are dead. Ali Pasha escapes with a fraction of his army. The Sultan is furious. But not surprised. Because now he understands. This isn't a revolt. It's a vendetta. Here's where human stories begin to pile up. Because wars are not numbers. They are faces. There is an Albanian farmer named Lika. His village sits near a mountain pass. When Skanderbeg's men arrive, they ask one question. Will you help? Lika knows what help means. Food. Shelter. Silence. He also knows what happens when Ottomans discover collaborators. Impalement. Whole families. He hesitates. And Skanderbeg looks at him, not angry, not pleading. Just tired. And he says, "If you don't help me today, you will feed them tomorrow." Lika agrees. Months later, Ottoman troops burn the village anyway. Lika survives by hiding under corpses. When he crawls out, he joins Skanderbeg's army. This is how the rebellion grows. Not with speeches. With inevitability. But for every Lika, there is another story. An Ottoman janissary named Yusuf. Taken as a boy from Bulgaria. Converted. Trained. He believes in the system. He believes Skanderbeg is a traitor who must be destroyed. During a skirmish, Yusuf is wounded. Captured. Brought before Skanderbeg. And this is important. Because Skanderbeg recognizes him. They trained together years ago. Same drills. Same scars. For a moment, the war stops. Skanderbeg offers him a choice. Join us. Or leave alive. Yusuf spits at his feet. Calls him apostate. So Skanderbeg lets him go. Weeks later, Yusuf returns as part of another army. This time, he dies screaming in a ravine. This is the tragedy on both sides. There are no clean heroes here. By 1445, Albania should be dead. It isn't. Instead, Skanderbeg forges something unprecedented. The League of Lurja. Albanian nobles, famously divided, swear unity. Not loyalty to Skanderbeg. Loyalty to survival. It is fragile. Held together by fear and charisma. And the Ottomans intend to shatter it. Enter Murad II. The Sultan himself. This is escalation. He does not send generals now. He comes with overwhelming force. Chroniclers argue numbers. 40,000. 60,000. More. What matters is scale. This is an execution army. And it marches on Cluj. Cluj is not a city. It is a clawed fist of stone on a mountain ridge. Its walls are thick. Its supplies are limited. And its defenders are outnumbered beyond reason. Skanderbeg does something unexpected. He leaves. He rides out with a small force. Abandons the fortress to be besieged. From the outside, it looks insane. From the inside, it is terror. Imagine being inside Cluj. Food is rationed. Water is precious. Every day, Ottoman artillery pounds the walls. The sound never stops. Stone dust fills your lungs. Children stop crying because they're too weak. And then something worse happens. The Ottomans bring prisoners. They execute them within sight of the walls. Slowly. Methodically. A message. Surrender. But Skanderbeg is not gone. He is hunting. He cuts supply lines. He ambushes foraging parties. He strikes camps at night. Murad II cannot force him to battle. Weeks stretch into months. The besieging army begins to rot. Disease. Desertion. Hunger. And then winter comes. Snow seals the passes. The Sultan faces a choice. Stay, and risk catastrophe. Or retreat, and admit failure. He retreats. Cluj still stands. This is not just a defeat. It is a psychological rupture. And here's the part most people don't understand. This victory nearly breaks Skanderbeg. Because success brings consequences. The Ottomans now know his name. They now know his methods. And they will adapt. The empire sends spies. Bribes nobles. Turns families. And this is where betrayal strikes from inside. Hamza. Skanderbeg's nephew. The boy raised Ottoman. He defects back to the empire. Not quietly. Publicly. He tells the Sultan everything. Roots. Tactics. Weaknesses. He knows how Skanderbeg thinks, because he thinks the same way. This is not just treason. It's intimate. When Skanderbeg hears, witnesses say he goes silent. No shouting. No rage. Just silence. He orders no retaliation. No speeches. And that terrifies his men more than anger. Because silence means resolve. The Ottomans launch another campaign. This one almost works. Hamza leads them through hidden routes. Ambushes fail. Skanderbeg is nearly captured. For the first time, panic spreads among the Albanians. This is the lowest point so far. And it gets worse. A trusted Albanian lord defects. Another hesitates. Supplies run low. Venice, an ally, begins negotiating behind Skanderbeg's back. Isolation closes in. This is where rebellions die. Quietly. From exhaustion. And then, Skanderbeg does something no one expects. He attacks head-on. No ambush. No retreat. A full frontal assault against a larger force. His commanders protest. He ignores them. Because he has seen this before. In Ottoman service. An army that expects guerrilla war is vulnerable to shock. The battle is savage. Close quarters. Axes and swords. Men grappling in mud. At one point, Skanderbeg is unhorsed. An Ottoman soldier recognizes him. Raises his blade. And hesitates. Just long enough. Skanderbeg kills him. Afterward, Skanderbeg vomits. Not from wounds. From memory. The Ottomans retreat. Again. But the cost is unbearable. The rebellion survives. Barely. You think this is the end. It isn't. Because the next invasion will be bigger. More brutal. And it will push Skanderbeg to a decision that transforms this war from resistance into slaughter. In the next part, you will witness the campaign that made Ottoman commanders beg to be reassigned. You will hear about a battlefield so packed with corpses men walked across bodies without touching the ground. And you will finally understand where the number 100,000 comes from. And why even that might be an understatement. You think the Ottomans have learned. You think they'll slow down. They won't. Because humiliation doesn't teach empires caution. It teaches them cruelty. By the early 1450s, this war is no longer about Albania. It's about control. Because if one man, one former hostage, can defy the Sultan and live, then the Balkans start asking dangerous questions. So the Ottomans decide to answer those questions with blood. A lot of it. Imagine being in Edirne, the Ottoman capital. Maps are unrolled. Red lines slash across the Albanian mountains. Commanders argue. Courtiers whisper. And at the center of it all sits Murad II, aging, furious, obsessed. He doesn't want Skanderbeg defeated. He wants him erased. From memory. The order goes out. No half measures. No restraint. Villages that resist are to be burned. Fields salted. Civilians relocated, or killed. This is not conquest. This is punishment. And now, for the first time, the Ottomans bring overwhelming numbers. Not one army. Several. Column after column pour into Albania. Chroniclers on both sides stop counting accurately, because it becomes meaningless. What matters is that Skanderbeg is outnumbered beyond logic. And still, he refuses to flee. Let me tell you about the Battle of Mokra. It's one of those battles history almost forgets, because it doesn't fit clean narratives. No heroic speeches. No perfect formations. Just annihilation. You are an Ottoman infantryman marching through the Mokra mountains. You've been told Skanderbeg is nearby. You expect ambush. So you move cautiously. Shields up. Scouts ahead. But nothing happens. 4 hours. Then days. Your nerves begin to fray. And that's when the trap closes. It starts with silence. Not arrows. Not horns. Silence so deep it feels wrong. Then, from behind you, screams. Your rear guard is hit. You turn. And the front erupts. Albanian cavalry smash into your flanks. Light infantry swarm the slopes. There is no direction to run. Men are cut down in tight clusters. Bodies pile so thick horses refuse to step forward. Ottoman officers try to rally. They are targeted first. Skanderbeg knows this trick well. By the end of the day, the valley is unrecognizable. Blood pools in low ground. Wounded men beg for water, and drink mud instead. Entire units cease to exist. An Ottoman chronicler later writes, with chilling restraint, "Few returned. Fewer spoke." This is where numbers start getting thrown around. 10,000 dead here. 15,000 there. But what matters is accumulation. Because these aren't pitched battles. They're exterminations. Small armies swallowed whole. Now here's the psychological twist. Skanderbeg doesn't pursue survivors. He lets them go. Wounded. Traumatized. Because fear spreads faster than corpses. And it works. Ottoman soldiers begin to dread Albanian postings. Veterans fake illness. Commanders request reassignment. There are reports, real ones, of men breaking down before even seeing combat. This is not legend. This is morale collapse. But Skanderbeg pays a price. Every victory costs him men he cannot replace. Albania bleeds too. There's a young Albanian named Mark. Barely old enough to shave. He joins Skanderbeg's forces after his family is killed in a reprisal raid. In his first fight, he freezes. An Ottoman soldier charges him. Mark closes his eyes and swings. The blade connects. The sound, a dull, wet crack, never leaves him. After the battle, Mark vomits until he's empty. He fights again. And again. By the third battle, he doesn't vomit anymore. This is how wars hollow people out. By 1451, Murad II dies. And his son takes the throne. Mehmed II. Young. Brilliant. Ruthless. History will remember him as the conqueror. But before Constantinople, there is Albania. And Skanderbeg. Mehmed studies this war carefully. He doesn't underestimate Skanderbeg. He respects him. Which makes the next phase far worse. Instead of rushing armies in blindly, Mehmed plays politics. He buys nobles. He fractures alliances. He pressures Venice. He starves Skanderbeg diplomatically. And it almost works. Venice, terrified of Ottoman power, signs treaties. Supplies slow. Money dries up. Skanderbeg is left holding mountains and memories. Then Mehmed makes his move. A massive invasion. Again. This time led by his most trusted commanders. And with a new tactic. They build forts. Deep inside Albanian territory. Permanent claws. The goal is not quick victory. It's suffocation. One fortress, Elbasan, is built almost overnight. Walls rise. Garrisons settle in. Skanderbeg attacks it repeatedly. Fails. This is new. Failure tastes bitter. This is one of the false endings. Because for a moment, it looks like the rebellion is finished. Ottoman forts choke the land. Supply routes are cut. Allies are gone. Skanderbeg is aging. His men are exhausted. History holds its breath. And then, Skanderbeg disappears. 4 months. No major engagements. No proclamations. No raids. Ottoman commanders relax. They think he's broken. They are wrong. Skanderbeg has gone underground. He dismantles his own army. Splits it into cells. Small bands. Invisible. They stop fighting like soldiers. And start hunting like predators. One Ottoman officer writes about a night attack. No warning. No sound. Throats cut in tents. Fires set after. Panic spreads. And by morning, half the camp is dead or gone. This happens again. And again. The forts become traps. Supplies can't move. Garrisons starve. Disease spreads. What was meant to suffocate Skanderbeg now bleeds the Ottomans dry. And then comes the battle that shatters morale completely. The Battle of Albulina. This is where the legend explodes. The Ottomans march confidently. They believe Skanderbeg has fled. Their army camps in a valley. Careless. Relaxed. Armor stacked. Horses unguarded. Skanderbeg is watching. From the hills. With an army he rebuilt in silence. At dawn. Hell opens. Albanian forces slam into the camp from 3 sides. Trumpets blare. Men wake to screaming. Some are killed in their sleep. Others run without weapons. Command collapses instantly. This is not battle. It's slaughter. Ottoman chroniclers admit it. Thousands killed. Commanders captured. The rest flee blindly. Skanderbeg's men chase them for miles. Cutting down stragglers. No mercy. This is where the number starts to climb rapidly. Because Albulina isn't one massacre. It's the proof. Proof that the Ottomans can still be humiliated. Mehmed is furious. But now, something else creeps in. Respect. He offers Skanderbeg peace. Titles. Land. Status. Skanderbeg refuses. Without hesitation. Because this war has passed the point of negotiation. And here's the darkest truth. Skanderbeg is no longer fighting for victory. He is fighting for memory. He knows Albania cannot destroy the Ottoman Empire. But he can make it bleed. He can make it remember. And remember it does. In the next part, you will witness the final invasions. The sieges where desperation turns cannibalistic. The betrayal that almost kills Skanderbeg. And the last campaign, where death numbers become so large they stop feeling real. Until you see what they look like up close. Because the slaughter isn't finished. Not yet. You think the Ottomans would stop. You think after Albulina, after humiliation piled on humiliation, reason would intervene. It doesn't. Because now this war is personal. For Mehmed too. For Skanderbeg. And for every man who has bled into Albanian soil. Imagine Mehmed standing alone at night. Constantinople is still in his future, but Albania is in his present. Every failed campaign gnaws at him. Every report reads the same: ambush, massacre, retreat. And worst of all, the name Skanderbeg spreads. Across Europe. Popes praise him. Kings write letters. Poets mythologize him while he's still alive. To an empire built on inevitability. This is poison. So Mehmed decides to end the myth. Completely. The next invasion is unlike anything before it. Not just an army. A system. Engineers. Artillery. Executioners. And an order that chills even seasoned commanders. No mercy. Villages that had once been spared are erased. Fields burned. Children taken. This is scorched earth, Ottoman style. The message is clear. Hide Skanderbeg, and die with him. Let me tell you about a woman named Mara. Her village feeds Skanderbeg's men. When Ottoman troops arrive, they don't ask questions. They gather everyone. Men first. Executed publicly. Then women. Mara survives because she faints, or pretends to. She wakes under corpses. Blood in her mouth. The smell of burned hair in the air. She crawls into the forest. Days later, Skanderbeg scouts find her. She doesn't cry. She just points. And Skanderbeg understands. This war has crossed into something darker. The Ottomans besiege Cluj again. This time with artillery powerful enough to crack stone. The walls shudder. Sections collapse. Defenders die buried. Inside, famine sets in. People chew leather. Boil bones twice. Drink water laced with blood. An Italian mercenary inside the fortress writes, "We no longer count days. Only dead." Skanderbeg attacks relentlessly from outside. Night raids. Supply ambushes. But the pressure is crushing. This is the closest the rebellion comes to collapse. Here comes the second false ending. Because Cluj almost falls. One night, a breach opens. Ottoman troops pour in. Hand-to-hand fighting erupts inside the city. 4 hours, it's chaos. Flames. Screams. Steel on stone. And then, dawn. The Ottomans are thrown back. Barely. Bodies clog the breach so tightly men walk across them like a bridge. Kruj survives. Again. Mehmed pulls back. Not defeated. Just delayed. And delay is enough. Because time is Skanderbeg's ally. Europe finally understands. This isn't just a local revolt. This is a wall. If Albania falls, Italy is next. Rome is next. So help arrives. Money. Men. Supplies. Just enough. But Skanderbeg doesn't celebrate. He's aging. His hair is grey. His body is scarred. And worse. Betrayal returns. A trusted commander sells information. An ambush nearly kills Skanderbeg. His horse is shot out from under him. He fights on foot. Barely escapes. For the first time. He laughs afterward. A broken sound. Because death has been chasing him for decades. The final campaigns blur into exhaustion. Invasion after invasion. Ambush after ambush. The numbers accumulate. 10,000 here. 20,000 there. By the time Ottoman chroniclers stop pretending precision, they use words like uncountable. Here's the truth behind the 100,000. It's not one battle. It's a generation. Ottoman armies destroyed in pieces. Over decades. In terrain that devours men. Add them together. And the number stops sounding exaggerated. Let me tell you about one last Ottoman soldier. His name is Hassan. He's marched into Albania 3 times. Survived twice. On the third, he deserts. He throws away his weapons. Tries to cross the mountains alone. Skanderbeg scouts find him. They don't kill him. They let him go. Because Hassan is already broken. And broken men spread fear better than corpses. By the late 1460s, something unthinkable happens. The Ottomans slow down. Campaigns become cautious. Smaller. More defensive. The rebellion has changed strategy. Not by winning. But by enduring. And then, Skanderbeg falls ill. Not in battle. Not dramatically. Malaria. A reminder that nature kills more efficiently than empires. He knows what this means. Without him, the rebellion dies. He summons his commanders. Gives orders. Not for victory. For delay. For memory. When Skanderbeg dies in 1468, Albania mourns. Europe mourns. The Ottomans celebrate quietly. But here's the twist. The war doesn't end immediately. It limps on. Years. Decades. Because Skanderbeg didn't just fight armies. He taught people how to resist. Eventually, Albania falls. Kruj is taken. The eagle lowered. But something permanent has happened. The Ottoman advance west is delayed. Italy breathes. History shifts. And that brings us to the final question. Was it worth it? In the final part, we confront the aftermath. The myth versus the truth. The cost of slaughter. And why Skanderbeg still haunts empires that believe resistance can be erased. Because now, you're about to hear the story history didn't want to tell. You think the story is over. The hero is dead. The fortress will fall. The empire will move on. That's how most histories end. Neat. Clean. Forgettable. But this one doesn't. Because the most dangerous thing Skanderbeg ever did wasn't killing Ottoman soldiers. It was what he left behind. Let's talk about the aftermath. Not the legend. The wreckage. When Skanderbeg dies in 1468, Albania doesn't erupt into chaos immediately. It goes quiet. A heavy, exhausted quiet. Villages are half empty. Fields are scarred. Entire generations of men are missing. This isn't a nation celebrating survival. It's a land that has been bled nearly dry. Ottoman commanders return cautiously. They don't rush in triumphantly. They probe. They fortify. They remember. Because every valley has killed men before. Every forest feels like a mouth waiting to close. Kruj holds out longer than anyone expects. Years. Even without Skanderbeg. That alone should tell you everything. Because rebellions usually die the moment the leader does. This one doesn't. When Kruj finally falls in 1478, it isn't a storming. It's starvation. The defenders are skeletal. Weapons are broken. Water is gone. And still, they don't surrender until there is nothing left to give. Ottoman troops walk into a fortress that smells like rot and ash. Victory tastes bitter. Now here's where history starts lying. Because numbers become propaganda. Ottoman records downplay losses. European writers inflate them. 100,000 dead becomes a symbol. A mythic figure. And modern historians argue endlessly about accuracy. But they're asking the wrong question. The real question isn't how many died. It's why so many kept dying. Over 25 years of war. Dozens of major campaigns. Hundreds of skirmishes. Entire armies destroyed in pieces. Men killed by blades, hunger, disease, exposure. If you add them together, not theatrically, not heroically, just mechanically, the number stops being absurd. It becomes inevitable. And here's the part people don't like to hear. Skanderbeg didn't win. Not in the traditional sense. Albania fell. The Ottomans stayed. So why does his name still matter? Because of delay. History is a chain of timing. If Albania falls quickly in the 1440s, Ottoman armies reach Italy earlier. Rome faces real invasion risk. European states are less prepared. Constantinople still falls, but everything after shifts. Skanderbeg didn't stop an empire. He slowed it. And sometimes, slowing history is enough to change it. But let's strip away romance. Because this wasn't clean heroism. Skanderbeg burned villages. Executed traitors. Ordered massacres. Used fear deliberately. He understood terror because he was raised by it. And he used it back. This makes people uncomfortable. Good. Because war is uncomfortable. Let me tell you about one final human story. Years after the war, an old Ottoman veteran is interviewed by a chronicler. He survived multiple campaigns. Lost brothers. Friends. He's asked what he remembers most about Albania. Not battles. Not Skanderbeg himself. He answers. The silence before the killing. Because that silence lived in his head forever. And here's the cruelest irony. Skanderbeg spent his life fighting the system that created him. Using the exact tools it taught him. He didn't defeat the Ottomans by being different. He defeated them by being perfect. Now let's talk about memory. After Albania falls, the Ottomans try to erase Skanderbeg. They rename places. Rewrite records. Suppress songs. But memory doesn't work that way. Albanian families keep stories. Quietly. At night. Songs about a man who refused to kneel. About mountains that drank armies. About a time when saying no mattered. Centuries later, those stories become identity. And that's why Skanderbeg outlives empires. Here's the final truth most people miss. Skanderbeg wasn't fighting to win a war. He was fighting to prove something. That inevitability is a lie. That even the strongest system can bleed. That one man, shaped by oppression, can turn around and carve wounds so deep they echo for generations. You were told this story was about slaughter. About betrayal. About 100,000 dead. But now you know better. It's about resistance being expensive. Painful. Ugly. And sometimes, worth it anyway. And now you understand something 99% of people never will. Skanderbeg isn't remembered because he was kind. Or noble. Or victorious. He's remembered because he made an empire afraid. For a quarter of a century. With nothing but mountains, memory, and an unbreakable refusal to submit. You now know the real story. Not the statue. Not the myth. The blood-soaked truth behind the name. And once you know it, you don't forget it. END